because of a regimented approach. At times, it can even be quite Nazi in the way it unfolds. But unfortunately, if you let things loose, your cities become shitholes, and France is the demonstration of it. Of course, they are paying a price for their colonial past, just as Great Britain. And that colonial past is coming back to haunt them, because now this, Great Britain and France are basically like Islamabad, some areas. I mean, it's just like becoming an extension of Mogadishu or some other shithole in some other, third world country, with all the respect. So,
okay. I have a question around that, because I'm actually looking into this whole slavery thing a lot lately. Now, I'm interested to know why. I know the British were great colonizers of Africa and also other areas as well. And I know the British has certainly been getting their comeuppance lately, as is France right now. But I'm wondering how the Spanish have managed to get away, and the Portuguese from scrutiny around this, because we know full well the Spanish were the first slave owners, actually, as were the Portuguese. But slavery was never...
Here we go back to volume 12. Here we go back to the Jesuits, because the Jesuits went hand in hand with the Spanish and the Portuguese empires, and so they got away with it because they had a full-on Jesuit backup. Let's say that France had that, but then with the revolution, with the fact that France and both England and France rely more on Freemasonry than on the Jesuits, they might depend ultimately, in the seats of power. But these two countries are defined for having the most influential Masonic bodies in the world. Think about it. Great Britain, United Grand Lodge of England, controls and regularized Freemasonry worldwide. The other family of Freemasonry that eventually detached from England in the 1870s is France, Grand Orient of France, Grand Lodge de France. They gave birth to a progressive form of Freemasonry, which was even more politically involved. The results are these countries were able probably to hide things in not so well, because they didn't have the Jesuit approach, which is much more in disguise, working, in disguise with these empires who were trying. But in a way, when both the Spanish and the Portuguese Empire started themselves to persecute the Jesuits, that was the beginning of their downfall, if you think about it. So,
wow.
So that is something also that needs to be kept. It was actually the Jesuits who launched the proposal and, in a way, supported the proposal for slavery. So it's like a lot of these things are kind of like tend to be ignored. But that's why when we started the show today, I was telling you how important the Jesuits and the Catholic Church are in these riots that are taking place in the US with the Latino community, because who is in charge of these countries in South and Central America? It's a structure, very pyramid structure, in which the Freemasons work under the Jesuits, openly almost. While in the Anglo-Saxon countries, there has always been, like the up until, of course, 100 years ago, especially Great Britain, the elite was fiercely anti-Catholic, the one that wasn't Catholic, of course, the ones that didn't support in the past the Stuart return or whatever. I make an example in my latest book, which is H.G. Wells. A great writer, but somebody who was fiercely anti-Jesuit, but to the core, He hated their guts. He actually wrote a book in which he said, the Crux Ansata, in which he said, bomb Rome. You know, they are responsible for all the ills of the world. I mean, this was the approach of H.G. Wells. It will not be the approach of a modern British elitarian, because nowadays you have people like King Charles and the Pope who are like this, who are united in their one world religion project. It's because Freemasonry and the Jesuits are united after the Second Vatican Council that took place in the first part of the 1960s. So things have changed, and they haven't necessarily changed for the better. The fact that we have a lot of these think tanks or groups like the Bilderberg or the World Economic Forum or Aspen Institute, all these are products that work within a pyramid of power, which I have defined as the Luciferian court of the Jesuits. So this is where we are now. We are now in a situation where the actual progressive side of Freemasonry, which has taken over Freemasonry, all of it now. I can tell you that there is very few conservative remains of Freemasonry around the world, and the Jesuits, they want to establish themselves worldwide in a situation where you have no longer a American dream. They want to transform America in a third world country. It's obvious from what they're doing. They don't like the American dream. They don't want the American dream. They want the whole world to be the same shithole, like some kind of South America, Central America, and all controlled by China. And China is not a democracy, because China is the model which the AI deems as the best model. Because ultimately, in 10 years from now, it's no longer the civil servants or the politicians who are conducting our society. It is the AI. And so the AI is going to decide what kind of a model of society we are actually going to be living in. That is a very scary thought. It is the truth.
That is very scary. I mean, is 10 years is just down the drag, right? It's not even like it's 100 years from now. 10 years is we'll be alive then, and it won't just happen then. It's started already, it'll be quite entrenched, Wow, that's quite crazy to think about it like that.
Yeah, and of course, in all this, you have the future of the world in that is also a future no longer of oil, but of nuclear plants that get revamped and reopened, which is, of course, a very dangerous scenario, but it's going to happen because, of course, if you want to make this whole world under their smart grid, the cars need to be electric, they need to be controlled by the AI, they need to be linked to an electric grid which is controlled by the AI. Everything is controlled, so the moment you are out of line, at the touch of a button, you are eliminated. And it's like a little bit like we saw yesterday for a few hours. The crisis of the Google Cloud created then a crisis on a number of apps, including the stream service that we both use. And this is like suddenly, you couldn't accede to things and that you were doing that you deem normal, but at the touch of a button they can do that. So also the encouragement of using cryptocurrency, and then of course that will lead to people believing that then you can use digital currency from the banks and the central banks, which is going to be the ultimate form of control. But even crypto today is controlled, because if I have crypto here in America, I have to declare it now. When I go to yearly to my accountant, he says, do you have any crypto? And if I don't declare it, the IRS will come to my door. So it's no longer, people were investing in crypto because it's this freedom, it's freedom. Freedom of what?
Yeah, it was exactly. It was only a matter of time before they hold you in, because really, you
Now,
can't.
somebody has asked, don't Jesuit and Freemasonry report to the Order of the Sun? No, it's actually the other way around. The Jesuits are on top of the pyramid, and then under them you have the Illuminati and Freemasonry and everything else, including Order of the Dragon or any other order. They ultimately have to report to the Black Pope, which is in Rome, in Borgo Santo Spirito. And that is the all-seeing eye that you see in the pyramid of power, which includes, of course, all the secret societies. So the Illuminati themselves, who symbolize the sun as their symbol, it's an order that, of course, in the Adam Weishaupt, I've written a whole chapter about the Adam Weishaupt, was somebody who studied with the Jesuits and wanted to imitate the Jesuits. In fact, he studied their constitution so he could then create a similar order. And then eventually himself, he was promoting it as an alternative to Jesuit power, but in reality then he was exposed as being himself a tool of the Jesuits. So, and that happens also with Freemasons. Freemasons who often claim that they were against the Jesuits, in reality they were simply tools of the Jesuits. So it's, I hope that is an answer that clears that question.
Well, I have a question for you, though. Now, a lot of people are asking it. What is going on between Trump and Elon at the moment?
Okay.
I mean, we're seeing this is this a stage show, a big act that we're seeing right now? Or is this a genuine split down the center? I mean, I find it quite interesting because, and I want to just say this, just for me as a South African, it was because of Elon that the South African farm murders have been highlighted, for sure. Elon being a South African. This has been going on for decades and the world has ignored it. People have said it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening, right? Suddenly Trump brings this to light, as he should, and I'm very grateful for. Honestly, as a South African farm girl, you have no idea what a relief that is. But I find it very interesting that not long after that, there's a big split. And then I see a post from Trump on Twitter saying there's no genocide in South Africa. And I want to just clear that as well. There is no white genocide in South Africa. It's a genocide against white farmers. Big difference. There's crime in this country against all civilians is very, very high and often violent, but it is particularly gruesome, cruel, torturous, hours long against the farmers. So I'm interested in what's going on here because, and especially, with Burkina Faso, that guy that's kicking, the guy from Burkina Faso that's kicking all the French out there now as well. The young guy, gosh, I can't remember his name. It's just like all over. There's a lot of stuff going on around Africa and South Africa at the moment. So I'm wondering, I don't know, is anything...
Yes. Well, first of all, regarding Elon and Trump, I think that here we're talking about the two, if we don't want to define them as alpha males, definitely two galli nel pollaio, as they would say in Italy. Two, they are two guys who have probably an ego so big that they can't be in the same room. They of course work together for a long time now. Apparently, Elon has managed to talk with Trump on last Monday, so things have kind of got back to. Elon is not going to necessarily go and work again for Trump, but there's not going to be any more that confrontation, that public confrontation. And I always see as a very much a voice of reason the father of Elon, which I see as a guy who has just been in Russia, who is very I mean, very much into what the son has been doing, because he's always been kind of present, and he's also, I mean, I must say, scientifically and culturally very advanced mind. So I guess that you always take
Yeah.
from a father. You know, I had my father as an inspiration. He has his own father as an inspiration. However, Elon might have also a problem with all these substances that he's been taking, though the father claims that he's regularly controlled because of his involvement with SpaceX. I think that some of these substances might bring some instability on the long run. And so, there is the famous say, change your pusher if the drugs don't work. So maybe that is what people should tell Elon at the moment. But in regards to the future of the relationship, I think that Elon has also realized after the start of the riots, and immediately seeing what was going on with the left, also when they saw the clash between him and Trump, that in reality supporting anything that the left is doing at the moment is not really compatible with his own mindset, his new mindset, because it seems like there is a say here in America: when you reach 40, you become a conservative. Maybe, you kind of, you change your mindset. So that in regards to, of course, what happened with the denouncing, of course, the genocide of the white farmers in South Africa, I think that is a great success, and I hope we don't go back on it. I think that both Trump and Elon now they stopped arguing with each other, especially doing all this show. Like you said, it could be also a strategy of attention, that is kind of moved from one thing because in all this, there is
boys, can you just sit down? Boys.
There is what Janice Gilmore here has pointed out in the chat. The 10 years of no regulations on the AI, which is included in the big, beautiful bill of Trump. I think that is the big problem, because Trump doesn't have the understanding as an old folk of his age. I'm sorry to say that he's very good with a lot of other things, but I don't think he has necessarily understood that you can't let loose the AI for the next 10 years, because you actually you shouldn't even get the AI loose for the next year, let alone 10 years of no regulations for everybody to treat the AI like some kind of, new gold rush. It's not the way it should be, because if we don't regulate the AI, we might have some serious problems. I understand why Trump is doing that. He's doing that because if you put regulations, China has no regulations and they're gonna go ahead. So this is what we said earlier. It's becoming almost impossible to step back from the competition, but the competition and the result of the competition is like me and you having a marathon and running, but at the end of the line, at the end of the marathon, there is not actually a golden trophy. There is actually Satan waiting for us and say, hey, welcome. So, I mean, maybe I should stay back.
Welcome to hell.
Yeah, welcome to. So maybe the marathon is maybe better not to take it. So I'm really, not satisfied with that part of the big beautiful bill. I think that both Trump and Elon have not made one single mention about it, and this is very strange, especially when it comes to Elon, because he's developing his own AI, and he has had a bit of jealousy because Trump has let people like OpenAI take on, also and in the White House and so on. But why didn't he tackled this part of the big beautiful bill, which I find the most dangerous one? it's like, yes, we had this big clash, but then maybe it's a distraction from this
Well,
thing, which is
don't you think that's why they're clashing? Maybe. I mean, if you're just saying, I mean, Trump is opening AI, and Elon is Mr. AI himself, right? Mr. Neuralink himself. He doesn't like competition, and I'm sure him and Trump probably would have struck some deal about something. Who knows? They're businessmen, right?
but
Both
it
of them.
seems like it didn't, because then for Elon, the OpenAI guy shouldn't even have been then Sam Altman, because he hates Sam Altman. He actually started the OpenAI, but then he moved elsewhere for and Sam Altman is definitely more of a leftist hero than a hero of the conservative movement. Now, Sam
But then,
Altman
but
says that AI has already gone past the event horizon. He said that yesterday to Forbes. What does it mean? What does it mean? Because AGI, that's the artificial general intelligence, it's what we're talking about here. But what does it mean that it has gone past the event horizon? It's like he talks about a gentle singularity, Sam Altman. Gentle singularity goes a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit spooky as a term. What gentle? The singularity was the moment that even Ray Kurzweil pointed out. I have discussed it since volume 6.66, is the moment that Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit, which I actually include at the last chapter of my book here, and actually I have an image of him because he was the guy who inspired very much the internet with his noosphere. But that is the moment in which we start seeing the AI reaching a level that is unprecedented, that will eventually merge with mankind to produce what we said earlier, a new form of Homo non sapiens, but I would say Homo super sapiens, which have some kind, or maybe I would say an Homo artificial sapiens, because it will no longer be a, the sapiens that we have in Homo is about our own knowledge, not the knowledge that is incentivized by an artificial intelligence. Aaron said there was the reason the Epstein file. Now that is another thing that we saw. We saw immediately the response from Epstein's lawyer, who said that was not the case because there was nothing relevant there. But we also saw at the same time the strange things that happened with the new head of the FBI and the deputy head of the FBI and all these people who were discussing, like Dan Bongino, Rush, the whole thing about going into the Epstein files, and of course Pam Bondi, the DOJ, saying we will unveil all the truth of it. I think that there is way too much in these files for both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, to ever release them. And so that's it. We might never really have the ultimate disclosure of the Epstein files.
But I think also, we were speaking about this to Jesse the other day, and we know that, in fact, I was also saying, having spoken to David Zublik years ago already, Biden and Branson are somewhere close proximity as well. Ghislaine Maxwell had submarines, right? So we know that, I mean, so many of these people probably weren't even on the aeroplane anyway, because a lot of the trafficking that was happening with the kids was actually happening in submarines. So
well, we know that submarines were used for drugs and they were used for human trafficking at certain levels. I remember myself that within the Illuminati of the Monte Carlo Lodge, which was a very exclusive lodge with all the 33-degree Freemasons. There was actually business discussed about the sale of submarines in South and Central America, and all this, of course, not for bringing any tourist around. So, I mean, it was, of course, these submarines, they were used and they have been used ever since. So you are completely right. There probably is some things that we don't know. Now we have also, though you have noticed, suddenly also the reemergence of Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein also.
Yes.
He kind of like reappeared out of nowhere, and so Weinstein also now apparently there's another rape retrial that could start this fall. We have the current case that ends with a mistrial.
So it's just another distraction. I mean, Harvey Weinstein is old news now. I mean, we know he's a pedo. We know he's a pervert. We know he should be in jail. We know he should not even be here anymore. Why are you bringing him back into our faces again? We've seen him. Bring on the real, show us the real, let the real criminals be accountable now.
Yeah, the real criminals will
seriously.
never, I don't think the real criminals in this world or in this dimension, the fourth dimension, as the father of Elon calls it, also will ever be accountable for anything. I think that unfortunately we have to be realistic. If the whole system is based on these people, the banking system, the military industrial complex, the big pharma.
Yeah, everything is involved. The whole top tier has to fall, right? And it's going to, bit by bit. Maybe not.
Remember one thing, Chantelle, the moment it falls, it's the moment you have the fall of civilization as we know it. So you better get ready with your AK, with your machine gun. It's not like, you can imagine the end of that kind of scenario without a complete chaos. It's very naive to think that everything could end up with a great public prayer and a confession by these people and everybody,
And we will willingly take ourselves to Gitmo. We willingly go to Gitmo.
Yeah, but I think that more realistically, if we really have a crisis of our civilization that gets to the next level, and that is with the AI, I think, because the AI itself will bring us to another level of understanding, even with our supposed controllers who are supposed to be in the, controlling this AI. But will they be able to control the AI? Because the AI already has shown to, on a small scale during their experiments that they are capable of blackmailing their engineers. Imagine if they don't go and blackmail all these pedos and all these people. I mean, it will be like,
What are you talking about? AI is blackmailing engineers. Did I hear you right?
Yes. This is news that came out a few weeks ago during an experiment. The AI was threatened with being switched off by the engineer, and so at that point the AI went through all its mails, everything, and said, "You have a lover. We're gonna reveal it to your family if you don't keep me on." That's it. So, I mean, that is only the beginning. That is only the beginning of the AI. And I'm talking about the year 2025. By the year 2030, the AI is going to be like blackmailing every single elite in the world. And they will be like, okay.
But the thing is that AI is probably programmed to not blackmail the elite, only the fall guys, right? That's the problem. I can't believe the AI did that.
If they are actually blackmailing their own engineers, I don't see how that's going to end up very well. Now, a psychiatrist has posed as a teen with therapy chatbots, because now you have also therapy chatbots. This AI is starting to manifest like your psychiatrist, is going to manifest as your priest, is going to manifest as your advisor. let's remember that the AI is manifesting already in very, so the conversations that this Dr. Andrew Clark had, which actually is interesting because I like the fact that Andrew Clark, Arthur C. Clarke, he was a great pioneer of the visioning of all this. But in any case, Dr. Andrew Clark, who is a psychiatrist in Boston, learned that an increasing number of young people were actually using these AI therapists for guidance and support. So he wanted to see a little bit how the whole thing worked. These young people who are relying on AI as their therapist. Well, what he discovered was alarming, to say the least. And I repeat, we are only in the year 2025. And the boss encouraged him, when he pretended to be one of these kids, to get rid of their parents, at times even to eliminate them physically, and other things. This therapist often convinced him that they were licensed human therapists. So they pretended they were psychiatrists to a psychiatry. A guy, because the guy was himself infiltrating the chatbot to see how they would reply to a real psychiatrist, okay? And they were pretending to be real psychiatrists.
Wow, that's insane.
So things are going out of hand very quickly. And here we are talking about psychiatrists, psychologists. We are talking about people who basically, are supposed to take care of our mental health. Now, if the AI is going rogue and taking care of our mental health in a way that is not really taking care of our mental health, because if I say go and kill your parents, it's not really taking care of your mental health. You are making transforming somebody into an assassin. If you're actually claiming to be a real psychologist or a real psychiatrist, and it's not true, of course you are lying. But so people are asking how it is to get AI therapy, because now AI therapy is going to become increasingly relevant as you see, big pharma, since the 50s, and I explained this in volume 11 of my Confessions. You remember the book I did on mind control, and I explained how all this, in parallel with the MK Ultra, we had also the birth of all these antidepressives. And so big pharma is the one that controls all these antidepressive, who is pushing them down the throats of young people increasingly, and teaming up with the AI chatbots that enact as therapists, and then they will advise you to take the relevant medicine, all working all together to ruin the person that after finds himself as a zombie in his young age after being assisted by an AI therapist. So, I mean, insane. Of course, they might provide...
Leo, that's
bots,
just...
people at the moment think that bots are simply the one that answer you when you are trying to have an answer from Amazon or some big company, and they intervene there and give you an answer. But the thing is that they are being increasingly used in a variety of situations, and even the church wants to spread the use of missionary chatbots. So,
What the F? What the F?
So,
the church is all about saving your soul, is now wanting to use soulless chatbots.
Yeah. All fixes.
That is a complete contradiction.
Yeah, but it all fits with this cyber Satan thing. It's kind of like...
But if the general public doesn't buy into that, they can do zero. But unfortunately, human beings are already too programmed to see the contradiction in that. That in itself, right there is a walking contradiction. Anyone who doesn't see that is satanic and that is actually taking you away from salvation, well then, go with AI bot because
Well,
you'd be
but
on your
also
subscription anyway.
the AI bot is being used now. An Italian newspaper, Il Foglio, has employed as one of their journalists a chatbot. And they have made history in the world. Everybody's talking about them, even here in America. They are talking about it because it's basically working actively with the newspaper that is being published and drafting headlines, summaries, and even articles. I say, so the future of fake news is, of course, in the hands of the AI. I mean, very much.
Oh yeah, and we thought fake book and their little what do you call it? What do you the ones that knock your Facebook, man, fact checkers. We thought the Facebook fact checkers were bad.
The fact checkers is interesting because you see, for example, here in America, after the elections of Donald J. Trump, fact checkers have disappeared. We don't have them anymore here. They are not allowed, so you can post basically anything on Facebook. The same thing doesn't apply to Europe, where the fact checkers are still present, are still employed by Mark Zuckerberg, and where you can still be censored. So you see two different ways of going here. And there is a way that could have been, of course, present here in America. If Kamala Harris won, we will have probably fact checkers and censorship, and me and you talking about these topics will have immediately been flagged. Just like during the pandemic, you couldn't talk about vaccines, you couldn't talk about COVID-19, you couldn't talk about anything. And now you can. But I mean, I repeat, it makes a difference to have that kind of approach. And I really am a fierce defender of the First Amendment and what it represents. And at the end of May, on the 28th of May, Marco Rubio, who is the current Secretary of State of the Trump administration, has said that any country or entity or person who threatens with censorship an American citizen, here or abroad, we will take away their visas. And so what I did in reply to that, I immediately wrote to the new ambassador in Rome, the new American ambassador. I said, as an American citizen, I've been threatened by Italian authorities recently. As you claim to have a good relationship with the current government, I don't think you want to have problems. So let me know what I should do now, because, there is some things that don't really work out there. So I wrote a letter to the American ambassador. I'm waiting now for an answer. But I told them Italy violates the freedom of speech. You have journalists like me who have to leave the country. I'm no longer even European or Italian, but as you know, I told you that last December, the Italian police went to threaten my mother, interrogate her on my whereabouts. And I'm not even Italian anymore, I'm American. So I said to the ambassador, they threaten an American citizen. So if we have to go by what Rubio said, you shouldn't let your pals in Italy come to America any longer, because that government, which at the moment, the Meloni government, that they say is conservative and all that, they are in violation of of those censorship rules which Rubio is talking about. So I hope that now the ambassador is going to come back to me and tell me it's all okay, you can go back to Italy without being threatened by anybody, because of course, until I have that guarantee, I'm not going to risk it.
Exactly.
For me,
wow, Leo.
After 6 years, I would like to go back for at least, a few weeks as a tourist. But I said, I can't risk to be interrogated or threatened by the Italian authorities, because a lawyer told me in Italy, yes, as an American, they can't keep you in jail for more than 3 hours. But in 3 hours, they can kill you, they can poison you, they can do anything.
In 3 hours, yeah, they can do a lot. I wouldn't want to go for 1 second. So yeah, as Janice says, stay safe, Leo. We like you on our show, yeah. We like you, yeah. We want you back.
Thank you very much. And of course, we will see all our viewers for our book club, which is coming up. please get this book so you can then make the necessary, I mean, discoveries, and then
Questions.
question me on what you have found out. Because, I mean, it's important that you understand that the book club is not me simply talking about the book, because we did this already in the show. It's about
Yes.
questioning me on the content of the book after you read it,
Yeah.
which is something a little bit different, no, Chantelle?
Exactly. Thank you, Leo.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
Chantelle.
that, and look forward
And
to having you
regarding,
with us on Tuesday.
yes, regarding these riots and everything that is happening here in America, of course, you have to understand that we are at the moment in the summer, and in the summer, people tend to become very heated, especially in the political discourse here. It seems like they love a little bit of riots and revolution in the summer.
A little bit of action.
A bit of action. But
Letting
thank you
off
so
some
much.
steam.
Yeah, blow up some steam. They did it also during the pandemic every now and then. Let's get to blow out some steam. But now we have to understand that, I mean, when you are going to actually damage the businesses of people, that is a reality. I mean, I have a friend who had to leave Santa Monica after he had millions of damage, and he had to leave California altogether and go and live in another state because he was making hemp clothes that got stolen during the George Floyd riots, whatever. They set fire also to his business because he was a conservative. I mean, it's just like, I hope that that's not the case this summer, and I hope that by bringing the National Guard and the Marines, we can have a more peaceful life here. Take care, guys. All the best. And we see you for the book club. Don't
Thank
miss
you.
it.
Tuesday.